What's going on? This is the House of Boom podcast. I'm your host, Eric Boom Salvery. Fresh off the plane from Miami. Shout out to my homeboy, Jeff Eaton. Well, he hosted a walk for mental health and wellness last Saturday. And so by the time you see this, it may be a week from then, but it was a really dope cause and just a really dope event to go to. Also got to see the ins and outs of the University of Miami at the U. The red carpet was rolled out for me, so just so happy to do that and now be back. And while we're in this sense of talking about having to look inside a Power 5, a top 25 Power 5 facility, I think it's on brand with the subject that I want to talk about today. And before I do that, I want to introduce my guest, Jordan Alston. He is the Web3 musical king of comedy. I don't know, see, because I'm always killing this. I'm always killing these intros, but it's all good. I'm actually give you a second to introduce yourself properly because Boom is gonna mess it up, but Jordan will get it right. So Jordan Alston, the floor is yours. Who are you and what do you do?
Man, for sure. Well, music executive, mentor, working in the Web3 space right now. Shout out to all my metaverse artists. Shout out to my dog Teflon Sega over at Empire, killing things in the NFT space as well. So anybody interested in getting down on those things, holla at me. So
you do all that good stuff that you just talked about. But recently in the news, you went to the University of Alabama. You also happen to be at a very popular place before the University of Alabama.
Let's be clear. I'm a graduate of the University of Alabama. So I got the degree right somewhere back there. So
right next to the Quiet Storm sign, which is his name, being a part of the illustrious Kappa Alpha Psi. And do you guys say incorporated after?
Of course, Kappa Alpha Psi Incorporated.
Okay, I just want to make sure I get that right because I don't want nobody coming knocking on my door because y'all deep. Right next to that sign on his degree from the University of Alabama, but moreover, he originally started his collegiate journey at the Jackson State. What do they call it? The Boom, the Tigers? Because I'm so confused when I hear about all the different nicknames that the Jackson State has.
Well, the Jackson State University, you got to put the in front of it. You know what I'm saying? Of course, home of the legendary, world famous Sonic Boom of the South.
Okay.
Love the Boom. So shout out to those guys, man. The guys and gals still doing their thing out there, working hard. And of course, shout out to Coach Prime, man, and what he's doing with the football team. Because when I was there, it was rough.
It was rough. And so the divide or the thing that brings those two things together is that you went to both. So you have a unique perspective. Last week, Nick Saban, he ate one of those one chip spicy chips, and then he took a match and he went outside and became a fire-breathing dragon and decided to just go outside and just spit fire at everybody. He decided to spit fire at Jimbo Fisher of Texas A&M, and then somehow, some way, Coach Prime got dragged into all that he has to say about NILs and money going to players and all that good stuff. And it was a very interesting subject. I'll be honest with you. When I started seeing it on your mini feed or Facebook or on Instagram, whatever, I was like, oh, this is getting spicy. And I wanted to have some popcorn and just watch this movie. And then when he dragged Jackson State into it, I was like, oh, I don't know what kind of worms he thought he was opening up. And I was just waiting and just sitting back and like, this is going to be real interesting because Dion got something to say. Coach Prime, Cody Prime, whatever you want to call him. I know he has very specific rules about what he wants to get called, but it's very interesting. And so because you are someone who I guess is in the great in between of both those programs, both those schools. Do you think Nick Saban was wrong? Let's start there. Do you think he was wrong?
Um, Honestly, no. When you look at wrong in what sense? Because this is kind of a two-tiered question in a way. Wrong in the way in what he said about NIL and how it's instituted and how it's being used. No. If you look at the way certain schools are utilizing the NIL rules, is basically taking the bag man and saying, hey, here's 100 bands, come to my school. Or in the case of the rumors about Texas, if you sign with every offensive lineman that signed with Texas gets $50,000.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like things like that. It's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be being paid for name, image, and likeness, meaning presumably you come to the school, you perform well, and you get brand deals. That's how it's supposed to work. Not let me give you 70 bands to come to my school. That's two different things. You see what I'm saying? Like that's a very important distinction, and that's what Coach Saban was talking about. Now, granted, this is America, and the average reading level is second grade, so people don't rationally comprehend things a lot of times. You know what I mean? And so you kind of have to bring it down for some people. But that's what he was saying. That's been the persistent, the consistent comments about Texas A&M and how Texas A&M got their class, right? It defies logic that a 8-4 team just happens to get the number one class.
Mm-hmm.
The last time we saw this was when what was it? Ole Miss was like 7 and what was it? It was like 7 and no, excuse me. They were somewhere around the 8-4. They were somewhere in that range.
You talking about when they turned around and got AJ Brown and all those guys?
When they got AJ Brown and all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, turns out it was actually something going on there. So it's one of those things where the intent of something has to be addressed, and that's what Coach was talking about. Okay. As far as him calling out names, it's always been my understanding, at least across the SEC, that there's a gentleman's rule about not directly addressing coaches. And I think that's why if you saw the SEC commissioner made Coach say, or you can't make Saban do anything, but he, Saban apologized and Jimbo apologized, because that's not good sportsmanship. Calling out Jackson State was interesting. I think that, and rightfully so, I think that a lot of the HBCU crowd look at it as kind of like punching down or something like that. I didn't necessarily see it that way. Big shout out to Travis Hunter and whatever situation he has, whatever deal he has. But I saw a lot of the conversation was like, well, where is he getting this from? There was a lot of publications talking about $1 million NIL deal and, such and such.
Right.
They got him. And if that's the case, cool. But don't be obtuse about it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't think he should have called out Jackson State. I mean, Jackson State, Texas A&M, they got money and all that. Take shots at them all day, every day. But if Jackson State's trying to, better their school via the sports program, which I have an issue with, but that's another conversation. And let them do their thing.
Doesn't matter that Travis got the bag. Like, what does it really matter that he got the bag? Like, even if he did, whether he did or he didn't, what does it matter?
Again, the rules are such that you're supposed to already be committed to the school, and that's when you commence with the name, image, and likeness. What likeness, name, or image is there to lend to someone if you're not at the school yet? Like if a money truck is driving, right, and money falls out, and I happen to be walking by, you happen to be walking by, and I take some money and I run and I get away with it. You take some money and a cop pulls up and you get arrested for theft. I mean, we both did something horrible. We both did something wrong, but it was the implementation. It was how we did it. It was the timing of what we did. And I think with Travis Hunter being such a big splash recruitment, especially for HBCUs. I mean, it was historic what he did, being who he was. But I think just some of the conversation about, well, like, oh, that wasn't the case, and there's no money here. It's like, come on, bro, like, relax. You know what I mean? Like, don't let's not do that.
Well, my issue, if I could say so, is that last year, before the season started, Nick Saban talked about Bryce Young getting close to six figures in some meeting. I think it was at the SEC Media Day. So in the same breath, you complain about Travis Hunter getting the bag. Yes, Bryce Young was already there and he was at the school. But
that's the point. Hold on. You can't overlook that part though. Mm-hmm. Bryce Young was already there. Bryce Young had thrown a touchdown.
Okay.
Bryce Young actually had stats. You know what I'm saying? So there's a difference between, again, somebody that's already on campus, that's already gone through training camps, made plays in the season, all of that. It's the difference between somebody in that way getting an NIL deal and me walking up to your house and saying, hey, boom, I got, suckers over here at university. We're going to give you 70 bands to come to our school. That's not how NIL is supposed to work. And that's the issue. It's not about the money per se. Mm-hmm. It's about how the money it's about the process and how it's implemented. And that's really the issue here, because if that's the case, and I think this is what Saban is really getting at here. And people kind of, every time he mentions something, like when he was talking about the hurry up offenses, he was talking about all kinds of things. Everybody thought he was complaining. Mm-hmm. What he was really saying was, if this is really where we want to take things, cool, we can do that. And basically, if NIL is like, hey kid, you here's whatever money to come to the school, then we could play that game. And I don't think people will like that game, because if anybody knows about Tuscaloosa football culture, I don't care how much oil money you got, we gonna figure out a way to get you on this campus if that's what it's gonna be.
So hopefully this is okay for me to say. You went to the University of Alabama. You were around a lot of football players. Do you think it's a difference between what's happening now and what was happening before? Well, I should ask, have you ever seen the bag get dropped off? Because that's really the thing. And then if so, do you think it's really a big difference between what's happening now and what was happening before?
Well, no, I've never seen the bag drop off. What's funny, you see a lot of people see a kid with like a Charger or something.
Okay.
And they assume that the school bought them a Charger, but then if you go look up the price of a Charger, it's like somebody's parents could have got them that car. You know what I mean? Like, the kids aren't broke, homeless, on the street, destitute. You know what I'm saying? It costs a lot of money. Boom, you play. It costs a lot of money to train and feed a football player. You can't be broke on that. And so I think a lot of the conversation involving who does what, I think a lot of it is rooted in ignorance and dare I say some of it racism, because it's like, how could Black people have the money to afford this, whatever? And I get into a lot of conversations online with people about that. And it's like, well, you see, he's got a Dodge Challenger with 20s on it. Okay, I know 16-year-olds with Challengers every day. Like, what are we talking about here? You know what I'm saying? And so, one of the things that Coach Saban, and consequently because he does the school in a lot of ways have adopted it. One of the things that he values is doing things the right way. You know what I'm saying? Being the best, doing things the right way, open and honesty. And if you ever have a chance to go down to Tuscaloosa, I am
gonna go. I'm gonna go with you. Just get the red carpet rolled out.
We're gonna pull up to the A&M game.
Right, that's gonna be a game.
But like if you look at the campus, man, the competitive spirit, wanting to be the best and wanting to work hard and do the right thing is very prevalent there. and it all permeates from his office.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like a mantra, man. I mean, like the chess team is like the wheelchair basketball team was like national champions. You know what I mean? Like
Really?
it's yeah, really. It's very serious there. Like I'm not joking about this. You know, the video games team was ranked. Like is very evident there when you step on campus, and of course you always have your senior elements. I mean, we did have a guy who ended up becoming a legend that did kill Auburn's trees, but
Mm-hmm.
um, you would be surprised that there aren't as many of those types around because when Saban came, he basically like, yo, this is my ship. I'm doing this thing my way.
Okay.
Don't get in my way. And so it's a different kind of experience at Alabama than you might find at, let's just say, Jimbo Fisher's Florida State team or something like that.
Okay. I mean, I have it as a former college football player and all that good stuff. I will say that the bag has been dropped off. I can't name names or say things, but it doesn't mean that everybody was getting it. At the same time, I do like what you said about people really not realizing that. So a lot of these people, some people come from well-off programs, prep school programs, where they're set up a little bit nicer. Some people are legacy kids. Some people there's a misnomer that college football players never got paid. There was a point in time where they were getting stipends. It just wasn't thousands and thousands. Huh?
Yeah, they still stipends.
Yeah, so it wasn't thousands and thousands of dollars and millions of dollars and all that other stuff, but people were getting paid. So if you wanted to take your stipend and put it towards a car payment, you could, right? That's on you. And hey, if
or if you live in some place, or
yeah,
anything,
right. And then there's other beautiful thing called financial aid. So there's
exactly,
yeah, refund checks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
There are definitely more than one way to get to the bag. I'm gonna put you on the other side of the argument. Obviously, Coach Prime responded. Do you think he gave an appropriate response? Do you like his response? What did you think about it?
I'm gonna be 100% honest with you about how I met with Coach Prime.
Oh, you met him before?
Listen, Coach Prime is dope, and I appreciate what he's doing for JSU. I kind of side eye anytime you get larger than life characters in the HBCU space and kind of professing that they're there almost to save the space. You look at like what Master P did with his son. I think he was at Tennessee State.
Right.
And he's like, oh, well, they don't have the kind of medical facility to keep him going. And it's like, bro, you're Master P. If they don't have it, give it to them, But instead, they left. My biggest thing about Coach Prime, he's taking these athletes and giving them an amazing opportunity. The school is growing in a way that it has never grown before. The brand is bigger than it's ever been because of him. I just worry. I'm sure what you've been a sports fan, you know about the Florida State rumors. About Jackson being a stepping stone to Florida State. I worry if that's really the case. Because Alabama's gonna be fine. You know what I mean? Texas A&M is gonna be fine. Florida, Georgia, whoever is gonna be fine. If Coach Prime leaves Jackson State before making Jackson State into something, the damage there, man, is going to be interesting. It's going to be bad.
Well, I'm not gonna let you go too far down this road. I'm not, although I want to give it to you. Do you think he gave? Did you like his response? Do you think it helped?
I don't, man. I mean, I feel like he and Jimbo Fisher gave the same response. It's just that Prime gave a more turned up version of the Jimbo Fisher response. I will say one thing I was intrigued about was when he said, "I'm not going to talk no more. Let's line it up." Alabama against Jackson State, I would pay good money to see that game.
Okay.
I would. I don't think it would. I don't think it would favor Jackson State, but I would pay good money to see that game for sure.
Okay, so that was one of the questions we were going to get to later, but I mean, you brought it up. You said one thing. You said you would hope that Coach Prime doesn't leave before he makes Jackson State into all it could be. So, how long do you think it would take for him to, knowing that he's already, he's had 2 seasons to kind of get his feet underneath him. He's already making an impact on the recruiting trail, and most coaches, they give you about 4 years. But how long do you think it would take Jackson State to get enough recruits in there to be competitive? I'm not even going to say win, but competitive against an Alabama team, a down Alabama team. Last year was a down year, right? Quote unquote.
Yeah, I was say, you mean like last year when we could have won the national championship,
right?
Barring a few injuries. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the issue is in the depth, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Jackson State could put together a formidable starting lineup. But I think when you start digging into, the depth, and especially when you start digging into depth in the trenches, I don't think that's where they'll be able to stand up. I think Jackson State could scare some teams, kind of like how Boise was, back in the day.
Okay.
When Boise pulled up on you, you were like, oh, I don't know, just roll the football out there.
What's the name was like that too? I want to say Appalachian State. Remember they beat Michigan?
Appalachian State will pull up on you, and it's like, well, and the way they did it, man, it was so original. They would get players that, players that had dog in them, but same time they might not have had the pedigree or the grading. They might not have come from like premier high schools, or you know what I'm saying? Like they got
right.
players that are like, all JUCO guys, but instead of going to JUCO, they went there.
Okay.
I wish where HBCUs took that route. Even if you look at the rules, with HBCUs being a lower division, you might be able to grab a player that might go JUCO, right? Instead, he comes to your school for a year or two, and then he can transfer out and still have a wealth of eligibility left.
So you're saying what is different is that you would rather them grab a guy who would have went to a JUCO instead and say, okay, no, come here, play here for 2 years, and if you can still get the accolades and all that other stuff, and then if you want to transfer up, kind of like exactly. My man, what's his name, James Baldwin. I know the last name was Baldwin. He was a receiver for Jackson State when they did that shortened spring season, and then he transferred to Michigan.
Yeah, I know you're talking. Yep. I mean, and even so much, Alabama had a couple players go to JSU. I know we had a receiver who was like a walk-on, I believe he was. His name is Joshua Lanier. He transferred to Jackson State. He's like the coldest receiver on 18. But then that kind of goes back to the answer of who will win the game, right? He was a walk-on at Alabama. He couldn't see the field. Who was ahead of him? Who was the third string? Who was second? Who was first? And I think that's the depth is the issue when you talk about that game. Although, to be fair, I think Jackson State could beat Mississippi State right now.
You think so?
I think so. Especially with the offense that Jackson runs. I think Jackson, if they wouldn't beat him outright, they definitely put a scare into him. I think JSU versus Ole Miss would be an interesting game. Lane Kiffin versus Deion Sanders. Come on, bro. I would pay good money to see that.
So, when all this came out and Nick Saban was like, running his mouth and all this other stuff, a lot of people had the offense at first perspective. Me, I'm like, yo, Jay-Z just put my name in a song. I'm now everybody in the world, because you got to think about it. Nick Saban, there are still people who follow Nick Saban who don't know who Jackson State is, don't know where Jackson State is, or probably confuse Jackson State for Jacksonville State, which is in Florida.
No, I used to get that all the time. It's Jacksonville State in Alabama. It was like, oh, you go to Jacksonville State? I'm like, nah, man, Jackson State in Mississippi.
Exactly. So there's another YouTube guy. He covers all HBCU sports, but really football and everything. His name is Off Script, and I told him, I was like, bro, I would have called Nick Saban and paid him or shot him a check. Like, could you say something else bad about me tomorrow? Then you just gonna make the brand go up. But I was curious, in your opinion, do you think this was good or bad for Jackson State?
I think it was good for Jackson State because you're going to have people that want to embrace kind of the counter in some circles, unfortunately, the counterculture vibe that HBCU football, HBCU sports, HBCU culture represents. And I think that's great. You'll have kids that just want to do something different, and so I think that's really cool. Unfortunately, again, I keep going back to this. I hope that Dion is really in for the ride on this, and not just when Shador graduates or when the other kids graduate. I really hope he's here for this, because if not, it's gonna leave a hole there, man. Because he's prime time. TSU has Eddie George there, but you wouldn't know it because he had prime time.
Right.
And so Dion's his presence, his experience, is what props this whole experience up. And so I'm really hoping that he's actually committed to Jackson State, because as the team grows, unfortunately, fortunately but unfortunately, the university will grow with it.
I do have an interesting thought about that, and I'll share it. I'm not sure if his long-term plan was to be there for a long period of time. Like I said, maybe 3 to 4 years. Him and Shador, maybe Florida State makes him an offer he can't refuse. My other guy, Emory Hunt, who is an official college football analyst for CBS Sports. I remember I put a tweet out, and I was like, am I too soon? I said, I forget the guy who's the head coach now. I was like, yeah, I give him 3 years. If Jackson State is a formidable program, Prime is the next head coach. I said, too soon. This is the day Deion Sanders got hired at Jackson State, and he was like, yo, way too soon. Then last offseason, after the season ended, I think he took some. It wasn't Florida State. It was like TCU and a couple other schools, and he was open about it. He said, "Yeah, I took the interviews," and then I retweeted that. I was like, "Still too soon," but I do. At this standpoint right now, where I stand, I could be wrong in the future. Nobody can predict that. I think that he's growing into a place where he's going to end up either elevating that program to the next level, which is taking them up to a full D1, so he can get more scholarships and all that other stuff. Or it's almost like he sometimes when we want something, we don't see the bigger picture, right? And then we think we're just going to do this for a little while, and then we end up doing it for longer. And what ends up happening is like, oh, this is the part I didn't see coming. And so I do think that it's a great possibility that he just may end up growing Jackson State into something that he didn't even see. So that's my thought about it right now, today, as it stands. And I think that the more that HBCU culture embraces him, I think it will be harder for him to walk away from that. Now, at the same time, if Florida State, or for just the randomness of a theory, the NFL comes calling and they give him an offer he can't refuse, it'll be different. I'm not saying he could be an NFL coach, but a lot of people were pumping that this offseason just because of the change of the culture.
He's a coach's coach, but I gotta ask you this though, Boom.
Okay.
What would a successful Jackson State comp be? Would it be like North Dakota State, which is like Division II Alabama with all the titles, or is it Boise? Like what would success be in the long run?
I think for them to truly have success, are you saying for them to is it the model you're asking me about, or are you?
like what
Because I
program
think they
comparison would you say would be successful for Jackson State?
well they got to run the table and they got to win the actual Celebration Bowl if they play in it this year, and then I
Okay.
think next year I think they had to do this year. Shador be a sophomore, so then I think his junior year they need to just forget all that and just go into the playoffs and then show their worth, because I feel like it's not worth it if you're not if you put Jackson State against North Dakota State, that'll be the most watched television football game on television because
Sure.
it'll sell out the both schools. There's a lot of stuff when it breaks down to the money, but that would be a sellout game. That would be almost as that probably would be because let's think about it. The playoffs, the how they have the system set up. Nobody really cares about them first two games. It's the national championship. Like, okay, we just did it in a seeding way, and they don't really ever give us good matchups. Like they always give us like somebody's gonna get there by a blowout or two blowouts. It's never. There hasn't been a real close game that propelled somebody to the national championship, right? And then we get to the championship, and sometimes it's hit or miss. Like I hated when LSU played Alabama again for the national championship. I thought that was corny. Like I want to see something else.
I thought that was absolutely fair. And to be fair, that was a BCS championship.
Yeah. Oh, that was the BCS one. That was one of the last one.
That wasn't playoff.
It just is like, give me something else. Give me somebody else. But then at the same time, who can hold their weight in that program?
Two best teams.
Yeah.
Two best teams.
Yeah. And so when you look at stuff like that, you're like, okay, I think Jackson State just has to. I know the Celebration Bowl is important. I know that a lot of people look forward to that. But if you run the table and win it this year, because they got their butts whooped last year, if they run the table and they win it this year, I think let's put that to rest. Let's go into this playoff system. Let's go make some noise and then show your worth, because that's going to elevate everything personally. But I mean, that's just me. So I just want to switch gears real quick. You had an interesting opinion or thought. You alluded to it earlier about HBCUs and athletes being used to fix HBCU problems. So I'm gonna give you the floor. Who's that? What dog is that? What type of dog is that? Oh. He got mad feisty real quick. Like, oh, you all right? You ain't get bit, did you?
Well, yeah, it's all good.
All right, well, you're a trooper. But using HBCU athletes to fix HBCU problems. So the floor is yours on that idea.
Yeah, for sure. I see a lot of the conversation around Travis Hunter, Coach Prime, doing their thing at Jackson, and I do think that their presence obviously is positive. Healthy HBCU sports is vital to just kind of the ecosystem in our community. Like some of the greatest athletes that have ever touched fields have come through HBCU. So
true.
I love that. But I think kind of the greater social conversation around those athletes and their presence being a boon financially to the universities and kind of helping prop the university up. I feel like it's a bit short-sighted to the actual scope of the financial issues that we have at HBCUs, and what it really will take for them to be what all they can be. It's about more than sports. Jackson State could win the next 12 Division II titles, and it won't be what it needs to be, because that's more of it's an operational standard, but also that's the responsibility of the entity that funds our public universities, which is the government. You look at what President Biden did recently, funding minority serving institutions. And I got into an argument with somebody, extremely left-leaning person, and they were like, oh, this is great for HBCUs. I said, is it? Because if you look at the money, which was several billion, serving minority serving institutions, That's a very broad term. And I think this is where people kind of, political education is important and reading between the lines is important. Um, you want to know what a minority one minority serving an institution?
Sure.
The University of Arizona. Would you like to know the University of Arizona's endowment? $1 billion.
Mm.
Does the University of Arizona need special designation and allocated funding for its university? No, it doesn't. You know who does though? Valdosta State University, Albany State University, Fisk, um, Johnson and Wales, um, Tougaloo, Talladega University. Like they need that money.
Mm.
And if you look at the history, the reason why we have HBCUs, why we have schools like Tuskegee, why we have the AU Center in Atlanta, the historical importance is rooted in a time where access wasn't equal. And I think what we're seeing today is that access still isn't equal. And so, what we really need to be talking about when it comes to evening the playing field for historically Black colleges and universities isn't, oh, we need more athletes to bring in more money. The conversation is, we need the government to do its job and to actually single out and solitarily push and fund money to HBCUs because we don't have the average HBCU grad isn't making the kind of money to where they could give back $10,000-$20,000 a year.
Okay.
You know what
So
I mean? And then so that shouldn't be the athletes' responsibilities. That's on our politicians. That's on our community to make these schools what they can be, not the athletes.
I agree with that only to the point of, is it just in your thinking? Do you think that is it just right now that we can kind of just push for? Okay, let me go backwards because I'm giving different. I'm all over the place in my head when I'm thinking about what you said. I was able to witness. Nobody was thinking about Rutgers University before the early 2000s. Nobody, not me, being a Jersey guy, playing football here, and all that other stuff. But I will say that I've seen this, how much faster the university, once the football program or the athletics program gets on the right course, how much faster it helps. Because I would say that almost every 5 years you can go back to Rutgers University from when that athletic department started getting their stuff right. Now there's a
Mhm.
PWI and it's different, and it's one of the biggest state institutions in the state of New Jersey's period. But just seeing the transformative nature of what it's done to the campus, the buildings they've been able to build, the students they've been able to attract, and then obviously it recycles, right? It recycles itself. So bigger campus, more beautiful things, shiny stuff for athletes to look at when they come. Then they say, okay, I'll commit here. This is different from what I'll get at another school. Plus, I don't know, however long close to New York or whatever. So I all I'm saying is that I see your point, but then I also see the point of seeing how important that the proper athletics, or not even a proper athletic program, but what an athletic program can do for a school in a sense of growth, in the sense of attendance, in the sense of people actually wanting to be there. And then I think about Jackson State. There's a level of pride there where people now want to give back. And then I also think about what you're saying, and I think about that. Oh, and you're not arguing against Dion or what they're doing, but it seems as if he's the early actionable item that can help get the conversation started. However, the point you were making is also important.
I mean, if you paint the picture, and this can't be and I get what you're saying, because being in Alabama, Alabama had money when I got there. Um, I mean, I think I ordered like lamb chops at like 3 in the morning one time from the
What?
calf. Like, it was wild. Yeah, I know it was wild, especially after coming from HBCU, man. I
That
called
meal
my mom,
plan, that meal plan was so different.
like, yo, you won't believe what I'm eating right now. You know, I lost it. But comparison, right? So you mentioned Rutgers. I looked it up. Rutgers endowment is $1.98 billion.
Wow.
Random school, I looked at University of Cincinnati, right? $1.8 billion. Jackson State's endowment is $60 million.
Pennies.
That's what I'm talking about. You can't fix that with sports. Like that's not a sports conversation.
Okay.
That that's a different conversation that we have to have there. And I think it's unfair to put and granted, it's respectable for any athlete that wants to take on that kind of responsibility of building up your school socially. But when we start talking fiscally, we have to have a very different conversation. And let's be honest here, anything that we mentioned regarding NIL or any of that, none of that is going to get Jackson State to $1.9 billion endowment. It's not. It won't. I don't care if JSU gets the next 5 Heisman winners. They're not going to hit $1.9 billion endowments.
Wow.
That's a government conversation. And that's what I'm getting at here. Like we really have to be honest, and I want Jackson to succeed. Even though I didn't get my degree from there, they could go ahead and forward your boy an honorary, I had a lot of memories. But I think we have to be honest as a community and as the larger Black community, what is really going to take for our institutions to not only last, but to thrive. Because that's ultimately what we want. Like we want more than survival now. We want to win. And that opens up a bigger conversation. Of course, I don't want to get into that. That opens up a larger conversation about the financial state of the Black community as a whole. But that was my point. And I think that's where, for me, a lot of the conversation about returning back home when it comes to athletes, HBCUs, the conversation gets derailed because it becomes fanciful. There are no amount of championships Dion can win at Jackson to where $2 billion is the endowment, is the screw around money for the school.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay. Well, that's Jordan. He just gave us an education on fiscal responsibilities, and I've just learned something. So hey, I mean, I didn't even know Rutgers had that type of endowment, or University of Cincinnati. And I mean, when you brought up the differences, I mean, you're talking pennies to dollars.
Night and day. And Cincinnati's not that big of a school, and that's my point.
Yeah.
Cincinnati isn't Georgia. You know what I mean? Like Cincinnati's not Vanderbilt. It's Cincinnati, but
Or
they
even
almost
its
have a
big brother comparison, Ohio State. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah, or Ohio State. It's nowhere close to Ohio State or Michigan, which my mom graduated from Michigan. Go Blue! Shout out to them. But it's still almost $2 billion, and when you compare that to $60 million, you can see the differences. You see the differences in the campus, in the food, in the amount of security, police, in how many trees. Like you see the differences, and that's my point. You can't put that kind of responsibility on the athletes and consider yourself a responsible citizen or a responsible steward of HBCU culture. Like we really got to push for more.
Bro, I'm just gonna say this, probably a little silly, but I know the difference. I went to a junior college before I went to Rutgers, and I saw the difference between eating pierogies and the same cheesesteak every day, and then being able to go into a dining hall and eating. Oh, I can have 2 steaks if I want. Oh,
Exactly.
like we can really get this going. So I definitely understand the struggle. I definitely understand the difference, and seeing that now, you've bridged the gap then what the difference is when it comes to endowments and so on and so forth. Let's talk about some fun stuff.
Sure.
You are music A&R, and you've done some things. I'm probably in a video that I never will see.
Wait, you haven't seen the video still?
Nah, I still ain't say. I said, did I even was I in it? Did I make the cut?
Yeah, you was in it, bro. It was on MTV too. Yeah, it was
Oh,
out, bro.
I gotta get that so I can put it on my IMDb or something like that.
Out.
But you were you in the band at Jackson State?
Man, let me tell you, bro. Band at Jackson, bands at most HBCUs is different. Like
Mm-hmm.
people don't know this. They make you sign an NCAA athletic waiver.
Really?
Yeah, bro. And so I
So
got to Jackson.
hold on before you go there. Is band a sport?
HBCU band is definitely a sport, bro.
Okay.
It's not a joke. It's
Talk
not a
about it.
joke.
Talk about it.
And by the time I got into Jackson, bro, I think I'd been in band since middle school. The high step and the whole nine. So, I was cocky, man. I was like, man, I'm gonna go in here, like I'm about to turn it up, bro. It was another life, man. It was another life. If you go online, there's a documentary about Jackson State's band,
Okay.
about the summer sessions for the freshmen, the crab sessions. It's like the military, bro. Like I broke down, man. I was injured. Like it was wild, man. It was nuts.
And so explain like the position, what were you doing in the band, all that stuff. I just want to hear it all because
And so to preface, I actually ended up leaving the
Jackson.
band.
Okay.
I ended up leaving the band because I started getting into music. I might or might not have thrown some unauthorized party. And I might have seen the student tribunal a couple times.
Ooh.
Um, it was an experience, bro. Like I had marched all through high school. I came out of one of the top bands in the Atlanta metro area. Shout out to MLK. And I'd done my thing, man. I could play, like I was confident. And when you get there, it's like they break you down to build unity. But the process was so much faster than I remember from high school, bro. Like, just learning all the cadences, man, learning the music. The marching style was different than what I was used to from my area. You meet so many different people, bro. It was an experience, man. I mean, some amazing musicians, man. Some of the best musicians I'd ever seen. And when you hear the boom coming, it's like a train coming down the street, bro. Like it's you feel them before you see them.
I should use that for my intro. Like when you feel the boom coming. What you think about that, producer? By when you feel the boom coming. But nah, that's the realest way you could do. Talk about. Now you talked about the training and the learning the cadences and all that other stuff. Talk about game day because I'm sure you.
I can't. I guess that's G14 classified.
Oh, come on.
But shout out to the boom though. And we, from my time when I was there, the section leader was CJ. That was CJ, and I believe CJ went on to work for Drake.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And Drake and Jackson State, people don't know this. Drake and Jackson State have a very intimate relationship. Cortez, who is the VP for Young Money, he's a Jackson State grad, and he was in the band as well. And so Drake comes back to Jackson and he does shows and all kinds of stuff. So they got official like Drake Jackson State hoodies and stuff. Like it's really dope. So the culture at Jackson State is like none other. I've been to other HBCUs, shout out to them. But the sense of community, man, the vibe, the fun, the weather's dope. It's next. The hottest place I feel like I've ever been in my life is Jackson, Mississippi in August. It was nuts. It was nuts. That heat was next level. Like I'm talking about, like you look like in front of you, and the pavement's kind of like waving like this, like
Whoa.
it's melting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's next level, bro. But I wouldn't trade those times for anything. And to be honest with you, being in Jackson State made my experience at Alabama a bit different. You
Before you
know,
move on to the experience with Alabama, I am going to cut in right here. Okay, you can't tell me about game day, but when you were on the boom, who is Jackson State's like, yo, it's on site? When I'm sure there's other bands, but there's like one that's like, yo, it's on site when I see them.
man, everybody at the university knows. You get some people, Tennessee State, of course.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, the best rivalry. Of course, and then of course you got Alcorn as well.
Okay.
But in my opinion, the Boombox Classic, man, Jackson State against Southern,
Oh.
it is that's the one you got to go to. Like you got to be there. You got to be there. You got to tailgate. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to be there before time. You got to stay for the fifth quarter after the game. Like you gotta experience that.
Jackson State and Southern, we going. Okay,
Yes.
now you can go on to Alabama and talk about the differences and the experiences.
Man, well, when I got to Bama, bro, it was a different world, man. The money stands out as soon as you get on the campus, and I mean, my room in Jackson wasn't horrible. Like I was staying in the honors room, and so my room was cool. Man, my joint at Alabama was like it was a suite. It looked like a suite. It felt like a suite. I felt like I was in a hotel.
Mm.
It was crazy. We had like I want to say like 4 or 5 cafeterias if I remember correctly. We had like 4 libraries. Um, it was nuts, bro. It was a different experience, man. And I reflected on just kind of some of the things that we dealt with at Jackson. I ain't gonna put the school on the spot, but anybody that's been to JSU or to other HBCUs, you have what's called like the HBCU experience.
Mm.
And, sometimes the HBCU experience gets a little rocky. So it was the complete antithesis of that. And in a way, I had friends that stayed at Stillman, which is HBCU in Tuscaloosa, down the way from Bama. And they would come over, man, and I'd walk them in the calf, and they just be taking home plates of food and stuff.
Hmm.
And it reminded me of when I was at Jackson, and just kind of the difference in the disparity.
Mm.
That's really what you notice. You notice the disparity. And that's not putting down the experience,
It just
but
is what it is.
it is what it is. Yeah. And to go back to what I was saying earlier, it doesn't have to be that way. And so, I mean, the campus is beautiful, bro. It took me, I got lost actually on campus. And it was funny with my lady, man. We went to a game and I parked on like the north side of the campus. It took us like 35 minutes to walk to the stadium from that side of campus. It was so huge. And so it's an experience, bro. Like you definitely you gotta see it. It's one of those things where you have places in sports that you gotta go to, like you gotta go to Green Bay.
Yeah.
You gotta go to a game in Boston, the Red Sox. You gotta come to Tuscaloosa on like a good game day on a Saturday.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot.
It's a holy sports experience.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot. Auburn, Alabama. You can only go to one, get one ticket. It's the last football game ever. Auburn, Alabama, or Jackson State. Jackson State Southern. Is that the?
I can only go to one ever.
This is the last game you can ever go to. You can't go to any other football games. That experience. I ain't talking about all the other campus on campus. I'm talking about the experience, everything. You just described all the HBCU. You just described Auburn and Alabama, and let's make you're on Alabama's campus or you're on Jackson State's campus. And it's a night game.
Oh, it's a night game. Oh man, man, the Boombox Classic is special. I'm gonna have to go Auburn, Alabama though.
Ooh, okay.
I'm gonna have to, and I'm gonna tell you why. You've never experienced hate
Mm.
until you go to the Iron Bowl, bro. Like the Iron Bowl is, it's a there's like a visceral dislike there, legitimately. It's like on site. I mean, you know, I'm sure you saw the Iron Bowl last year.
Mm.
No matter what the teams are, you know, I know everybody says this about the rivalry game, but this is for real about the Iron Bowl. There have been Alabama teams that, in my mind, are like historic, and they go into the Iron Bowl, particularly in Auburn. It's something about that field. That field is cursed or something. Like it's something about that school. When you go down there, it's just, you know, I think my first Iron Bowl as a student at Alabama was the Cam back where Cam came back on campus in Tuscaloosa. I think that was my first Iron Bowl, if I remember correct. Was it? No. That was my second Iron Bowl. That was my second Iron Bowl. And so, because I was on campus when Alabama beat Texas for their first title on the Saban.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that was my first home Iron Bowl was with Cam. And I was hurt, bro. Like I felt personally disrespected. I really did. And I wanted to root for Cam because you know he's from Atlanta. So, you know, he's from Atlanta, I'm from Atlanta. Like I want to root for my dog, but nah, bro. We were supposed to go to the championship. And then I think the year actually I think we were 10-3 that year. We ended up being 10-3. We beat the brakes off of Michigan in the Capital One Bowl or something.
Mm.
And then of course the kick six year, bro. I think I cried. Like I think I cried, bro, because I put money on Alabama to beat Florida State in a championship game, and
Wow.
Auburn just killed that. They killed that. I think I put like $500 on that, and I was hurt. So you know, and then of course you know the story about the trees. Shout out to rest in peace of the OG.
Mm-hmm.
They killed Auburn's trees. You know, they could have planted some new ones. They were being crybaby. But
Bro,
yeah,
I didn't
it's
even know
it's
you could
next
poison the
level.
tree. I knew you could cut it
It's
down, but I didn't know you could poison the tree.
Hey man, well listen, you know, we get real creative with our rivalry. And I think that's the difference. There's in my mind, you know, when you start talking football, um, the cultural battle between JSU and SU is what stands out. You know, like people come, you know, obviously you don't want to see the bands, you want to hear the bands battle, all that. It gets real disrespectful. But when you start talking about football, I think that's something I'll be excited about, especially if Dion stays and you see Jackson State become dominant and you kind of develop a more visceral dislike on the field between Jackson and the other teams. That's something that exists between Auburn and Alabama, and it goes back to, I don't know, like a little after the Civil War. So,
Oof.
yeah, it's wild. Actually, people don't know this the Alabama state legislature um, had to meet to bring the Iron Bowl back because it got canceled, and it got to the point to where they were going to stop like making laws in the state if they didn't bring this game back.
Wow.
You know, so it's next level. It gets really deep, man. I mean, depending on what school you went to, you might or might not win office.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when you get a chance, look up the machine at
Mm.
Alabama. That's a very interesting um, who really runs things behind the scenes story.
The machine. Got you. So
Yeah,
before we get out of here, I want you to expand on NFTs and Web3 and why those things are important right now and where we're going and how it connects to music.
for sure, for sure. So I get people ask me all the time, it's like, is an NFT just a picture? Um, if you look at it one way, it could be a picture, it could be audio, it could be video, whatever. But really, the idea is about ownership, and what constitutes ownership. and how flexible can ownership be. It's very important, especially if you're a musician, to get into not only get into the NFT space, but become comfortable with it. Web3, which is what we're calling the next level of the internet. AOL was like Web 1.0, and Twitter and Instagram is Web 2.0, so we're at Web 3 now. But Web 3 is really the next frontier, for how we engage with each other, um, how we can go about doing things in our lives that we've always done in a different, more secure way. You could be an artist. I know artists right now, that makes music NFTs. Bro never made more than $500 at a time on his music. Ever since he got into the NFT space, he's moved his wife to Germany.
Wow.
They got a house out there, and so he's clearing maybe 14, 15,000 a month, and so it's one of those things where it's very early. I feel like as a community, we could be a little bit gun shy on some things when it comes to tech. And you're going to make mistakes. We always try to be perfect with what we do, but we really need to just jump into this space and try to make it our own. Me personally, I'm launching my multimedia, multi operational, multi genre Web3 company. I'm calling it Invictus.
Okay.
And we're going to be focusing on the things that Black people care about, man, the diaspora. So, all the artists, all the creators, everybody is going to be Black, and we go do some real Black stuff. So, um, which is important to me, to create a space for us to do that, because we need more spaces, to do our own thing and be unabated and unabashed about it. So, yeah, man, NFTs, it's the future. NFTs are today. Web3, particularly the metaverse space, doing a lot of cool things there again. Shout out to my dog Teflon Sega and all the people over at Empire. They're taking music into a space to where we can be engaged, we can experience a unique artistic performance experience, no matter where we are. And generally, when you go to a concert, your concert is only as good as the audience, and the audience is only as good as the location. You could have caught a DMX show in Iowa. It wouldn't have been bumping as much as a DMX show in Brooklyn
Right.
or Queens,
Ever.
But yeah, ever. But in the NFT space, that's not, or rather in the metaverse space, that's not exactly the case. I saw Justin Bieber do a show, and there were people in the chat speaking Portuguese turned up in Brazil. There were people in Korea just live.
Wow.
He was talking to them. He could see them. He could comment on their clothes, all that. And so, really, the future is now in a lot of respects, when it comes to the artistic world. It's more advantageous to be independent and daring now than it's ever been. And so I think people need to take advantage of that.
Now break that down real quick again, because the Justin Bieber. So Justin's in a space now. He's
Yes.
he's at an actual concert, or he's just in a space created to.
Yeah, he's in a space. He's in a studio space.
Okay.
Uh, More than likely, he's operating through his avatar, so he has on a motion capture suit, and he's performing with a microphone like he would normally.
So how
And
do
as
I
he
how do I see the people that are watching the
but from the space,
yeah.
well, certain platforms have different capabilities.
Okay.
In Justin's case, he was performing on Wave's platform, Wave.watch, and there are screens and cameras that he can kind of see people that have their cameras on the platform.
Oh, okay.
So it makes for a very intuitive experience. I mean, it's awesome, and so that's the future. It's not about just one way engagement. It's about being able to engage across all platforms at all time. There's an app right now called Reach, and I tell every video creator, every content creator to use it, because Reach allows you to essentially turn yourself into a network. where you could broadcast across all of your social media live channels at one time with one feed.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's huge because generally, if you go live on IG, you just got to be on IG, or if you go live on Facebook, you just live on Facebook. If you go live on TikTok, you just live on TikTok.
Well, you got to
But with
have them
reach,
all on at the same time with different devices and
with
all that
different
stuff.
phones, yeah. But reach, you got one device all live at the same time broadcasting.
Got you.
Amazing, you know. So the future is now in the Web3 space, and I really need our community to not be afraid and really jump in 2 feet and engage with it, and you know, let's do some really cool stuff.
That's what it is. So plug yourself real quick and let everybody know where they can find you or anything that's important beyond what you just explained, because all that is important too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know, anybody can holler at me on IG, JCHRISALST. I'm on Twitter at the J Alston, as TheJALSTON. And you know, just hit me about whatever. You know, I'm open to chat opportunities, with you know, advice, whatever anybody needs. You know, I'm if I know it, it's yours. If I don't know it, I'll find out and bring it back to you. You know, and I think that's how we all should be. So, yeah, just drop me a line on there.
He's a man of his word. I remember last week, like I said, when Nick Saban was that fire breathing dragon, just spitting at everybody. I hit him up immediately, and I was like, I'm like, yo, because I remember when I started the pod, he was like, yo, I want to come on one day, and I was like, oh, okay. Nick done gave us something to talk about, so he is a
Yeah,
man
shout
of
out to
his
Coach
word.
Saban. He's you know he's the goat. You know, and you know he I wish his daughter was still on Twitter, man. Kristen,
Uh
she was like on 1,000 at all times. I think she got banned from Twitter for going at people.
huh.
She was on 100, man. But yeah, shout out to Coach Saban, man. Greatest college football coach of all time, and in my opinion, one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Got it. Well, that is Justin Austin. I am Eric Boom Salvery, not the boom, the sonic boom from the South, but you know, we make do up north. And I thank you for coming on, bro. And we will
Thanks for
talk
having
to
me.
you again soon. Deuces.